Hello everybody, it's the Mad Catter again, and today I'm going to do episode 4, and this one is about aliens. Yeah. So I'm not saying that I think I've been abducted by aliens or anything like that, but I have had, my share of weird kind of alien-ish experiences. And I guess, well, to start, I think I'm going to go ahead and try to clear up some stuff that I didn't actually have any closure for in a couple of videos. The first one was my first one, the near-death experience. I had mentioned that my actual near-death experience where I saw the tunnel was during a seizure. I was having they were grand mal seizures. And ever since I was hit, though, and it's been little over 7, no, almost 7. It's been almost 7 years ago. So yeah, it's been about 7 years, and I still haven't had a grand mal seizure since the one just before I got hit. So yeah, it feels like maybe I have a lot of petite malls where it feels like I get panic attacks like off and on throughout the day, but that could also be the post-traumatic stress, stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, so that's a little bit of a closure to that, is that after getting hit in the head during a violent robbery, it almost kind of reset my brain, and what I thought was going to kill me ended up becoming what appears to be maybe more like petite malls, which my brain can probably handle better than the grand malls. So anyway, and then I did the last video on the Ouija board experience that I had when my grandmother kept saying 24K, 24K over and over again, and I didn't know what she was saying. She kept saying 24K on the Ouija board, and that's all we could get out of it. So I didn't think anything of it, and I think it was a day or two later, it might have been the very next day, but it was within 2 days of this happening. My mother called me on the phone, and we were talking. She tells me that I think it was her uncle, gave her some jewelry that he had that belonged to her mother, my grandmother, and 2 of them were rings. And I asked her, is there one that's a 24 karat? And she said, yeah, there's a 12 karat and a 24 karat. She said that she was sending me the 12 karat, which I don't remember what I did with it. Like I said earlier, I'm a hoarder, so it could be around here somewhere. I'm sure it is around here somewhere. But it's way too small for me. She was a very tiny lady, and it would never even fit my pinky. So it was, I couldn't really wear it. I kind of lost track of it. But yeah, I think that maybe she was trying to tell me on that Ouija board thing that I was supposed to get the 24 karat one, that it's even possible that might have been a little bit bigger or something that I could have worn. But yeah, it occurred to me at the very moment my mom said that she had some jewelry from her uncle that belonged to my grandmother. As soon as she said that, the 24K, because it was so fresh in my head anyway, the 24K just really clicked, and it made me realize that, I mean, that had to have been. I can't think of anything else that would have been. So anyway, let me see here. So yeah, my little alien thing. I guess I've always kind of been into aliens. It probably started before this, but I remember, because I grew up in the 90s, and I'm sure everybody remembers this, especially kids of the 90s, remembers when Fire in the Sky came out, and some kids like myself were lucky enough to have parents who let them go see these scary creepy movies. And so I was having a little sleepover, and one of my little female friends, and I think I was probably about 12 or 13 at the time when this came out, something like that. I was around 12 or 13, and we went to see it in the theater, and it was like it scared all of my friends, and I think the one girl ended up spending the night there because she was the only one there. Anyway, she spent the night at my place, and we were trying to go to sleep. We were both laying. I had a water bed, but it wasn't heated. Yeah, and I know that's bad now, but yeah, I had an unheated water bed, and we were sleeping in that, and we were trying to go to sleep. It was right after this movie. She was sleeping next to the window, and she didn't want to lay next to the window because it was creeping her out. So I traded places with her, and I was laying next to the window, and she was laying on the other side. I'm about ready to drift off, and I hear her trembling voice in the darkness, and she says, I think there's something next to the bed over here. Can you come look at it? And I said, what? And I kind of, leaned over her and looked over the edge of the bed, and there was this little round thing glowing in the dark. And she says, what is it? And I said, I don't know. It might be an alien egg or something. And she said, oh my God, oh my God. And she got really creeped out. But of course, I was messing with her. I knew what it was. It was actually, it was some glow-in-the-dark silly putty that I had thrown across the room one day, and I couldn't find it again. So and apparently she found it in the dark there, looking over the edge of the bed. And so I said, oh, I'm just teasing, I'm teasing. I leaned over and grabbed it, and I said, it's some silly putty. And she got mad, and she threw it too. And we hear it bounce, but we're looking around, we don't see it anywhere. And the next morning we get up, and come to find out, it bounced off of some wall or something, and it landed in the bed on her hair, and she had been sleeping on it all night. Her body heat melted it into her hair. And we had to cut her hair before sending her back to her mother. I guess we didn't have to, but we ended up doing that because we knew how horrible it would look, just sending her home with this matted up mess of silly putty. And we did not have the internet. We didn't even have a computer. We didn't even have a word processor at that time. So it's not like we could just go Google it and, hey, how do you get silly putty out of your hair? But anyway, that was just one of those things that I always think about when I think about when I first started becoming interested in aliens and outer space and that kind of stuff. But years and years later, I was, I want to say my boyfriend and I were about 26, 27-ish, something like that. And the really good friend of mine, who I've mentioned before, not his mother, his sister had passed away, and she lived out in California. So I went out to California with him, and we were just gonna go and get her stuff packed up and have like somebody drive it back, and so we flew out there, and we were gonna do all that real quick. It took us almost a month. I literally got stranded out in California for almost a month. Almost lost my job. I really wish I'd known what I was getting myself into. I did not realize that it was going to take as long to get all of that stuff situated as it did. But my boyfriend ended up having to come out, and his family helped pay for him to fly out there and help us pack everything up. And finally, when we made it back across, the friend of mine had to stay behind. He got really sick and was in the hospital. And my boyfriend and I actually drove the whole way back. The U-Haul with everything, including her cat and her ashes in the back. Drove it all back from California up through New Mexico and stuff. And I remember we went at night because, one, that was a very big U-Haul. I was not used to driving a big truck. And so I wasn't really good at measuring the distance and, between the lines to stay in the lane. I was really paranoid about that. So I decided just to drive at night. There'd be less traffic. I could see the headlights coming from a distance. It just felt a little more safe for me. Anyway, as the sun's coming up, it was getting to be maybe 5, 6 a.m., something like that, around 6 a.m. We were coming through New Mexico, and I glance off to the side of the road as I'm driving, and it's off to my left. I see something out of the corner of my eye, and I look, and I was like, at first it didn't register. I was like, what the hell did I just see? And I double looked. I did a double take. And my boyfriend's sitting next to me, and he's awake too. And I said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And he said, yeah, I think I just saw what you saw, because by that point we had just literally blown past it on the interstate, or on the highway. I think we were on the highway. Anyway, what it was it looked like this big spherical object just hovering on the side of the road, and it had these like spider legs almost, and they were coming off of it at different angles, and it looked almost like a perfectly round, if you were to take the cockpit of a helicopter, where it's got the glass on the top and the bottom is the metal, that cockpit looking appearance, but made it into a sphere. That's kind of what it resembled. But it was there long enough for me to do a double take and actually set it in my mind, like, get that photographic memory, working there. So, yeah, and he had seen something. He didn't really know what he'd seen. So, I guess it was maybe 2 or 3 years after that, I was back home in the town I live in, and I was just driving, driving from one place to another, and driving past this little field. I see out of the corner of my eye something dark, and I look, and for a split second before it just vanished, it just, like an after image type of thing, like when you see trails, it's like I had seen the trail of it and it's gone now. That's how quickly it vanished. But off to the side in this field, and actually, let me see here, I was driving this way, so it would have been on my right side this time. And off on the side of the field, over the field, it is this gigantic black triangle that looked to be the size of a couple of football fields, if not more. I mean, I'm not really a good judge of football fields. As you can tell, I'm not like, all watching football or anything. So I'm not a great judge of how big a football field is, but I would say that in combination with how tall it was, you could probably fit my city almost inside of it if it was compact enough. You could fit all the people who live in the city, like inside of this giant triangle, is how big it appeared to me. And underneath it, there were all of these like mechanical parts, and it looked like square boxes, rectangular boxes, tubes, piping, other like things, just a lot going on down there, it seemed. And it just disappeared, and as soon as I had looked at it, it disappeared. And I mean, that was enough in and of itself. I mean, I've already believed in extraterrestrials, that people are visiting us from, and when I say people, I mean beings. People are visiting us from different dimensions, most likely. I think there is as great of a chance of that happening as there is of an actual alien race coming from an actual different planet on an actual ship to our actual planet, Like, I think there is just as much of a possibility of that happening. So